Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box, and I just want to do a quick video on James Degale. As you know, James Degale returned to the ring after about a 12-month layoff. His last fight was against Badou Jack, which was a majority draw, and he was facing Truax. Now, this was supposed to be kind of like a, what's the word I'm using for? A tune-up, really, for James Degale, because as you know, James Degale's been out injured for the last year or so, or 6 months or so, whatever you want to call it, with a shoulder injury. Now, as you're all aware, James Degale, it wasn't a good night for him. He lost by decision. Truax is now the new IBF super middleweight champion of the world. And I just kind of want to talk about this because James Degale's performance in the ring wasn't particularly great. It was average, below average. He definitely had issues in there in terms of his ring fitness. I mean, it's frustrating when I watch James Degale, to be honest with you. I mean, although he's been a road warrior and he's gone to the US and he's picked up his world title and defended his world title over there, you know, now, and done it the hard way, the tough way, not done it at home, done it away from home. You have to give him credit for that. Take your hat off to him for that. But whenever I see James Degale fight, as much as I like him, I think he's a talented individual, I get frustrated with him because of the style of fighting, the way he performs in the ring sometimes. Now, if you go back and watch the Degale fight and you go and watch him and Badou Jack, James has this bad habit of starting off the fight really well. So the first 3 or 4 rounds he'll do well. You know, he'll box, he'll move, he'll use the ring. You know, he'll throw punches in combinations, angles, etc. You know, he'll do really well, and he has this tendency to turn off in the middle rounds, and then he'll then come back and start turning it back on again. You know, in the latter rounds of a fight. Now, that wasn't the case in this fight. James started off alright. You know, he won the first few rounds, and then we got to like the 4th round, and Truax started to come back into it. You know, he started applying pressure to James Degale, started pinning him against the rope, started letting off combinations, really taking James Degale to a place where he didn't want to go, which was, you know, a lot of up against the rope, inside fighting, you know, close-knit combinations being let off, and James Degale wasn't using his jab enough. You know, that right shoulder of his, you know, quite clearly, you know, still bothering him. Or I don't know whether it wasn't hurting. He said it wasn't hurting. So it means that he has a lack of confidence in it, which means he hasn't probably fully recovered from the injury. And you know, he wasn't using the jab, you know, and that's key for James Degale, because the reason he gets those combinations off that we see, those uppercuts, the hooks, you know, the 1-2s, you know, it all comes off his jab. He relies on his jab a lot, you know, and it's very important to his style of fighting. And if you've lost complete confidence in using that jab, which he did quite clearly, you know, he wasn't confident in his shoulder, that his shoulder had, you know, whether it healed up properly. He wasn't throwing that jab, and that gave, you know, I'm not taking anything away from Truax. Great performance from him. He came out, you know, he was a 20-1 underdog. You know, he came over and did what he had to do, which was, you know, fight his fight, and was looking to win a world title and cause an upset. So congratulations to him for that. Of course, you know, I don't want to take anything away from Truax. He fought, you know, he fought a great fight. But James, you know, he just kept relying on the ropes too much. You know, he didn't keep it in the center of the ring enough. He didn't utilize his, like I said, his jab, and then work off his jab because of that lack of confidence. In the 4th round, you know, Truax, you started seeing, he started to come back in it, just the little signs of, you know, coming back into the fight. And the 5th round was unbelievable. It was a disaster for James Degale. James Degale took a hard, I think it was a hard uppercut, and it was to the mouth, and it caused the mouth injury again. And you could see as he was backing off and trying to, you know, he was kind of against the rope and trying to get away from Truax at that time. He put his hand up against his mouth, and as to indicate, like, you know, I can imagine what went through his mind then. You got to remember, he lost his teeth in his last fight, in preparations for his last fight. And he probably thought that one thought that probably went through his mind is probably that whole, oh my god, my teeth again. You know, and it does play, people are going to laugh at what I'm saying, but that sort of thing does play, it has a psychological effect on you. That if you've had that kind of injury where you've had your teeth knocked out, and then someone whacks you in the mouth hard and you think, oh my god, you know, my teeth. You know, it's like Kell Brook against Errol Spence. As soon as he felt his eye started twitching a little bit, he was like, oh my god, my eye, I'm going to go blind. You know, because that's what the doctor said to him after the Triple G fight. So, you know, there was a real lack of confidence from James Degale, in my opinion, with his shoulder, you know, the injuries he sustained from the Badou Jack fight. And Truax, you know, well done to him, man. You know, he took his opportunity, man. He fought really well, you know, pressured James Degale, took advantage of you know, Degale's lack of confidence and in his own abilities and his shoulder, of course. Truax pinned James Degale up against the ropes and into the corners at every opportunity he could get. And he just applied a lot of pressure and just beautifully worked from the inside, letting off combinations. And, you know, he thoroughly deserved his victory. I felt he won the fight by 1 or 2 rounds, definitely. James Degale, you know, at the end of the fight, you know, turned around and said that he feels he needs to go back to the drawing board. He needs to work on a few things. My question with James Degale is, I think he took this fight way too lightly. Doesn't matter how easy of a fight or how easy of an opponent you think you're going up against. You can't have that sort of mindset, because that guy's coming to win. He's coming to take what he can from you and upset the whole night. You can't allow yourself to fall into thinking, oh, I'll beat this guy. And then, you know, he was talking about it in his interviews before the fight, you know, with IFL and other, you know, channels and YouTube channels, and saying, you know, it's an easy fight, and then I'll go on and I've got to take on, you know, there's Chris Eubank Jr., there's George Groves, and, you know, his mindset was already on those big mega fights here in the UK and wasn't focused on the individual in front of him. And it cost him as well. You know, you can't dismiss any fighter at all, especially if they're coming across, you know, coming all the way from the US. You know, they're a massive underdog, they've got nothing to lose, they're going to take it to you. And if you don't believe, you know, in his training camp he says his shoulder was fine, but quite clearly on the night of the fight he wasn't as confident as he thought he was. And maybe James Degale's right, maybe he did come back too early. You know, it's disappointing because we were looking forward, here in the UK, we were looking forward to some really big fights with the likes of, you know, George Groves, you know, EUBANK, because the super middleweight division here in the UK is booming. You know, we've got George Groves with the WBA super title, we've got Chris Eubank Jr. with the IBO, you did have James Degale with the IBF, you've got Callum Smith. You know, those three, you know, EUBANK, Groves and Callum Smith are all involved in the semi-finals of the World Boxing Series, and it's just disappointing to see from James Degale. You know, maybe he did come back too early. I don't know. Only he knows the answer to that question. It felt like he did. He wasn't exactly confident in his jab, and that's so important to him. Like I said, what happens with James Degale now? He's going to have to go back and kind of start all over again, really. You know, there was no rematch clause as well in the contract, which was weird. I saw an interview by Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn said that, you know, if you're doing a voluntary defence of your title, why would you not put a rematch clause in the contract? Who negotiated your contract for you? And I have to agree, why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't there be? Why wouldn't you do that? You know, you kind of, you know, if there was a rematch clause, at least, you know, you're in a position to make a fight again and get your belt back. But right now, Caleb Truax has no obligations to fight James Degale because he clearly beat him, and he now has the opportunity to fight those big fights, you know, against EUBANK, against Groves, against Gilberto Riberas out there in the US. And, you know, it's a shame to see, but James looks like he's going to have to go away and do a bit of work and start all over again, and, you know, make himself relevant again in the super middleweight division. And as you can see from the tweet that just come up on the screen, Chris Eubank Jr. wasn't shy of letting James Degale know how he felt about his performance. And this is what he had to say in the tweet, which was, after all the trash talk and disrespectful comments at James Degale, you go and put on a display like that. All I can say is, wow, you have properly let down British boxing. Hashtag shameful. As you know, these two do not like each other. They don't like each other at all. Actually, to be fair, Groves, EUBANK and Degale don't like each other. I think it's a nice little rivalry there. It's a shame we won't see this fight now until James Degale gets himself back into a position where he has the right to call out the likes of EUBANK and Groves. Obviously, those two are going to fight each other pretty soon. But yeah, you know, I mean, when you talk all that smack, you know, and then you end up putting a performance like James Degale did on the weekend, and then losing your title as well. You know, expect Chris Eubank Jr. or your rivals to come back and, you know, kind of dish out a little bit of smack back to you and give you a bit of a low blow back in return. Not only that, even EUBANK Senior jumped in and did this tweet. James Degale is a talented boxer, but the temptation of fame can buckle the best of us. The embarrassment he is now facing will be the best medicine for him. He should use it to clean up his act and stay in the gym and win back the belt instead of wasting it on fun. Hashtag unfinished business. Now, this is referencing to James Degale's life away from the ring. Likes to enjoy himself when in between fights, etc., and all that sort of stuff. So basically, EUBANK giving him a bit of advice, saying, you know what, live a fighter's life and live it day in, day out. You know, but giving him props, not as, you know, it wasn't really an insulting tweet as his son did. More of the case of saying you're talented, but you know what, you need to commit yourself a little bit more to the sport of boxing. And it's something that Eddie Hearn touched on in the IFL interview as well recently, which he said, you know, he doesn't know if he doesn't believe James Degale loves boxing like he used to. You know, and if you're not fully committed, if you're not 100% committed to the sport, then, you know, this ain't tennis, this ain't football. You know, this is the hurt business, and you know that's what's going to happen. You're going to get hurt. So if you're not committed, then retire. So it's a lot of questions up in the air about James Degale at the moment. He has come back before. Obviously, when he lost his fight with George Groves years ago, we all know that grudge match that happened, and Groves won that fight. And James Degale had to go right back to the beginning, fighting in leisure centres and stuff like that, and came back up the hard way, and even won his world title the hard way. So he's done it before. Whether he's still got that grit inside him and that determination to do it again and get himself back into, you know, the top of the super middleweight division is another thing, you know, at this stage of his career. We'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you think. As always, guys, like, share and subscribe. And until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.